Imagine waking up one morning and by the time the sun sets, your entire city no longer exists. Your family gone, your neighbors gone, the streets you walked every day, the markets, the temples, the libraries that held thousands of years of human knowledge, reduced to ash and bones. That wasn't a nightmare, that was Tuesday if you lived in the wrong place, in the wrong century, because there was once a man who didn't just conquer nations, he erased them. Historians estimate that his campaigns killed somewhere between 30 and 40 million people. In a world of roughly 400 million souls, that's nearly 10% of every living human being on Earth. To equal that death toll today, you would need to kill 800 million people. His name was Genghis Khan, and this is his real story. He was not born a conqueror. He was born a child of the steppe, somewhere around the year 1162, near the border of what is now Mongolia and Siberia. His name at birth was Temüjin, a word that meant finest steel. His father, Yasuge, was a minor chieftain of the Borjigin clan, not a king, not a warlord, just a man trying to hold his tribe together in one of the harshest landscapes on Earth. According to Mongolian legend, Temüjin entered the world clutching a clot of blood in his right hand. The shaman said it was a sign, a prophecy written in bone and sky, but prophecy doesn't protect you from what came next. When Temüjin was just 9 years old, his father took him on a journey to find a bride, a normal custom on the steppe. On the way home, Yasuge shared a meal with a band of traveling Tatars. It was tradition to offer hospitality to strangers, but these strangers recognized their old enemy, and they slipped poison into his food. Yasuge made it home, barely. He died within days, and just like that, Temüjin's world collapsed. The clan that had pledged loyalty to his father, gone. They abandoned the widow and her 7 children, left them on the steppe with no animals, no protection, and no food. For years, Temüjin, his mother, and his siblings survived on roots, nuts, marmots, and whatever scraps they could find. They were refugees in a world that had no word for mercy. It was during this time, hungry, homeless, and humiliated, that something hardened inside the boy. He was captured and enslaved by a rival clan. He escaped. He killed his own half-brother over a stolen fish because on the steppe, a stolen fish meant someone might starve. He watched his young wife, Borte, be kidnapped on their wedding night, taken by raiders from the Merkit tribe. Every time life knocked him down, he got up. Every time the world told him he was nothing, he remembered, and he planned. What Temüjin understood, better than anyone alive at the time, was this. The steppe was broken because it was divided. Dozens of tribes, dozens of clans, all fighting each other in an endless cycle of raids, revenge, and poverty. No one was winning. Everyone was bleeding. While other leaders grabbed what they could for themselves, Temüjin thought bigger. He made alliances, carefully, strategically. He rescued Borte with the help of 2 allies, Jamuka, his childhood blood brother, and Togrul, a powerful chieftain who had once known his father. He built loyalty not through fear alone, but through a radical idea for his time: merit. In every other clan, your rank was determined by your bloodline. Temüjin didn't care about your bloodline, he cared about what you could do. Skilled generals rose through his ranks regardless of birth. Captured enemies who showed courage were offered a place in his army rather than a grave. He organized his warriors into units of 10, 100, and 1,000, a military structure so efficient it would be studied by strategists for centuries. And he used something no army of his time expected: psychological warfare. Before attacking the Naiman tribe in 1204, he ordered every soldier to light 5 campfires. The Naiman scouts reported back to their leaders. The Mongol army was impossibly vast. Panic spread through the enemy ranks before a single arrow was fired. By the year 1206, something unprecedented happened on the Mongolian steppe. Every tribe, every clan, every rival who had survived his campaigns, they gathered at the source of the Onon River, and they named Temüjin Genghis Khan, universal ruler, the man who had been a slave, who had survived on roots and desperation, who had watched his father die at 9 years old. He was now emperor of all Mongolia, but he was only getting started. What followed over the next 2 decades was a campaign of conquest so total, so overwhelming, that it still defies full comprehension. Genghis Khan turned his unified tribes into the most terrifying military machine the medieval world had ever seen. His cavalry moved at speeds that seemed impossible. Each warrior maintained multiple horses rotating between them to cover ground that would take other armies weeks. They could strike, vanish, and reappear from an entirely different direction before the enemy could react. His armies didn't just fight, they performed psychological operations. The Mongols were masters of rumor and fear. Cities that surrendered peacefully were often spared. Cities that resisted were made into warnings. The city of Nishapur resisted. The Mongols killed so many that contemporary accounts likely exaggerated, but nonetheless staggering, spoke of the bones being stacked into pyramids. Iran's population may not have recovered to pre-Mongol levels until the 20th century. In China, Genghis Khan attacked the Jin dynasty, one of the most powerful empires in the world. The Jin had armies larger than his entire nation. They had walls. They had siege weapons. It didn't matter. It didn't. The Mongols learned siege warfare from the very engineers they captured. They turned the enemy's own knowledge against them. By 1215, the Jin capital, the city now known as Beijing, was taken. Then came the defining moment of Genghis Khan's brutality. In 1219, he approached the Khwarezmian Empire, a vast Islamic power stretching across modern-day Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia. Genghis Khan did not want war. He sent a trade caravan, a peace offering, merchants carrying goods along the Silk Road. The governor of the city of Otrar had them all executed. Genghis Khan's response was measured, deliberate. He sent 3 ambassadors to the Khwarezmian Shah, demanding justice. The Shah had one of the ambassadors beheaded. He burned the beards off the other 2 and sent them back. What followed was not an invasion. It was an annihilation. Genghis Khan personally led somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 warriors into Khwarezmian territory. City after city fell. Samarkand, one of the greatest cities in the world at that time, Bukhara, Urgench, the Khwarezmian Empire, which had stood for centuries, ceased to exist within 3 years. By the time of his death in 1227, Genghis Khan controlled over 12 million square miles, an area larger than the entire African continent. His empire stretched from the shores of the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. No single person in history has ever conquered more land. But here is where history becomes complicated, because Genghis Khan was not simply a monster. He was something far more unsettling. He was a monster who also built things. While his armies brought death to tens of millions, his empire created something the world had never seen: the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace. For the first time in history, a single ruler controlled enough territory that merchants could travel safely from China to Eastern Europe. The Silk Road didn't just survive under the Mongols, it flourished. Technologies moved east to west and west to east as never before. Paper, printing, gunpowder, medical knowledge, all of it flowing freely across the largest empire ever created. Genghis Khan outlawed the kidnapping of women, something that had been common practice on the steppe for generations. He banned the enslavement of Mongols. He created a written legal code, the first the Mongols ever had. He established religious tolerance. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and animists all practiced freely within his empire. He also created what may have been history's first international postal system, a network of relay stations stretching thousands of miles. And then there is the genetic legacy. In 2003, geneticists made a discovery that stopped the scientific world cold. A specific Y chromosome pattern passed only from father to son was found in roughly 0.5% of all men alive today. That translates to approximately 16 million men carrying the genetic signature of one man, Genghis Khan. He died in August of 1227 during a campaign against the Western Shia, a people who had refused his orders and paid for it. How exactly he died remains unknown. A fall from a horse, an illness, perhaps an assassin. He was somewhere between 60 and 72 years old. Per his own instructions, he was buried without markings. His tomb has never been found, and maybe that was intentional, because a man who spent his life building the largest empire in history didn't need a grave to be remembered. He needed only the world he left behind reshaped, scarred, and utterly transformed by one boy from the steppe who refused to accept what fate had handed him. Was he a villain? Undoubtedly. The blood of tens of millions is not washed clean by a postal system or a legal code. Was he a genius? Without question. Military strategists still study him. His organizational innovations echo in armies to this day. Was he a product of his world? Absolutely. The steppe was brutal. It made brutal men. But what Genghis Khan represents more than conquest, more than death, is a reminder of what one human being can do when they decide, against all evidence, that the world can be different. He was abandoned, enslaved, starved, and from that, he built an empire, the largest the world has ever seen.